take 10 or 11, I'm increasingly uncertain, but I think this is the last take on the first reading. I am often asked about how Arendt and Heidegger met each other, and this is the way I have described it. In November 1924, her first semester at Marburg, Hannah attended a series of lectures by Dr. Heidegger. He did not yet have what was in Germany the highly esteemed title of professor. The seminar was on the subject of Plato's Sophist. This short dialogue in the original Greek was the only reading assigned, although Heidegger's lecture notes for the seminar, published some years later, are almost 20 times more extensive than the text on which they are based. In other seminars, students would have been expected to read half of all that Plato wrote and to immerse themselves in secondary literature. But Heidegger's students in the fall of 1924 were led by him to consider the meaning of almost every word and phrase in Greek. Thus, Plato became the substance of Hannah's first exercise in thinking with and against Heidegger. Heidegger's purpose was to demonstrate to his students that it was not Plato's thought that was decisive, but their own thinking, arising from direct personal confrontation with the matters about which Plato thought. Heidegger taught that the only meaningful approach to philosophy begins with recognition that it is not the thought of great philosophers that matters, but the fact of their thinking. At the end of class one day, at the beginning of February 1925, Heidegger approached the stylish young woman with stunning eyes who sat in the seminar room taking careful, thorough notes, and asked her to come to see him in his office. The days are gray, wet, and cold in Marburg at that time of year, and the old buildings were chilly and damp. When she came to his office, Hannah was wearing a coat buttoned to the collar and a hat with a large brim against the rain and cold. He asked about the lectures and about the philosophers she had been reading. She answered briefly, in a soft voice, sometimes in Greek and Latin. She looked away demurely, but he took her in with his eyes, and years later admitted to Hannah that he had retained the image of a shy girl quietly answering his questions all the rest of his life. A few days later, Hannah received a note from him that began, "Dear Miss Arendt, I must come to see you this evening and speak to your heart."